Hello and welcome back to the Eyes of Ode Gaming channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today I have another older game in my What Is It and Is It Worth It game review series. In this video I will go through the various aspects of the game, trying my best to avoid spoilers for new players, and give examples of similar games as well as my personal opinion as to whether I would recommend the game with a thumbs up or thumbs down, and if I personally enjoyed it. I won't be giving a number rating to the game as many other channels do, as I find this to be a very arbitrary way of rating games, which like any other entertainment is completely subjective, and instead I prefer to give enough info for you to make a decision on your own if you would like to go forward with picking up this title for yourself. How do you save the universe when the enemy is time itself? Today we take a look at the game Quantum Break. This one came out in 2016, being developed by Remedy Entertainment and published by Microsoft Studios. I'm very happy you've joined me as we take a look at what is Quantum Break, how have the graphics, mechanics, and general gameplay held up over the years, and is this one still worth it today? We'll be looking into this one, trying to stay objective and spoiler-free as much as possible, as we attempt to determine what the game is and try to answer the most important question in this review series: is this one worth it for you? So what kind of game is Quantum Break exactly? Well, it's a third-person action-adventure game with strong narrative emphasis. If we were looking at a ratio between gameplay versus narrative such as story sequences, cutscenes, and the game's unique episode system, it would be heavily weighted on the narrative side. Keep this in mind if you're the type of gamer who typically skips through cutscenes or dialogue to reach the action, as doing so in this game would greatly impact the overall experience. There's also a ton of reading material scattered through each zone, which can be collected and read. This is not mandatory, however, again, you'll be doing yourself a disservice to skip through this, as it is a large part of the content included in the game. In terms of progression, we're looking at a very linear style, where the game is broken into zones that you must complete to move on to the next area. No open world and just limited exploration within areas. Completely exploring areas is definitely recommended to ensure all narrative collectibles, as well as the game's version of skill points, are collected though. Mechanically, as mentioned, we are looking at a third-person shooter game. Though much of the game is focused on story through exploration and finding narrative collectibles, as well as cutscenes and episodes, there's still a decent amount of combat and gunplay within. Typically, these combat sequences will be easily passed through, and I found the difficulty which ramps up through the progression is mostly felt in the way of larger and larger contingents of enemies you will need to deal with. Although this is true for most of the game, it makes a sharp difficulty jump when going into the final act. Without going into any story points, just be prepared to adapt, as you will be challenged with not only familiar threats, but many other mechanics not encountered through the rest of the game. Aside from generally smooth gameplay, I really only have two critiques with the mechanics. The first being the jumping and climbing, and the second being the cover system. Jumping can feel very clunky at times and work perfectly during others. This wouldn't be such a frustration, however the number of times that you'll need to jump or climb to reach other areas will likely induce some exasperation with the system. As for the cover system, much like the first critique, sometimes it will be clunky and uncooperative, whereas other times it will work exactly as intended. This game employs an automatic cover approach, meaning that when engaged in combat, your character will automatically take cover behind objects. Though this frees the player to be more fluid with actions, it also restricts them in tactics that they can use. Annoyingly, for some reason, the player character may also not take cover or randomly pop out of cover at inopportune times. This didn't happen too frequently to me, but it did happen enough to cause annoyance with the system. Graphics in general are quite good. As a story-driven narrative game, each zone will be crafted specifically for what is going on in the storyline. I actually encountered a fair amount of unintended graphical stuttering with this one, especially when watching the episodes that play after the acts. There is an option to download the episodes rather than stream them, which is supposed to provide a more stable playback. However, even after downloading them, the episodes would freeze occasionally and give me a message of buffering. I'm not sure if this means that the video is still being streamed rather than playing off the hard drive, though considering my internet speed, I would still be confused why the video would require time to catch up. Ultimately, there are some minor graphical issues, but the environments are done very well, NPCs look very good, and things work well most of the time. I personally did not encounter any game-breaking bugs or issues. When looking at unique features, this game actually has a ton of them. I'm going to try to give you an idea without being too specific, as part of the real joy of this game is going in and discovering new abilities on your own. Aside from the traditional gunplay, the game is built around the concept of time and time manipulation. As you play through, you will continue to unlock more abilities associated with this, which will allow for more diverse gameplay as you progress. Another unique aspect I briefly touched on are the episodes. The game is broken into acts, with each act consisting of smaller parts. After the completion of each act, you will be taken to what is called a junction point. During this sequence, you will be presented with a choice, followed by an episode which will play out based on this. When selecting your choice, the player is actually given quite a bit of information as to what the choice you're making is and the potential outcomes and consequences before committing to either one. Though choices will impact the specific episode associated with it, these choices typically don't have a huge impact on how the rest of the game will play out. The episodes are an interesting change from typical cutscene styles employed by most games. Instead, you'll be treated with a live action episode of about 20 minutes or so, which again will play out based on the choices you made during gameplay. I was pleasantly surprised as the acting was substantially better than other games I had experienced which featured live action sequences, and they feature solid performances by the actors. Sound is very good in this game. General gameplay sounds are good and environmental noise works very well. Sounds which are associated with the time manipulation is also done in an interesting and unique way which fits well within the gameplay style. Dialogue is well written and performed exceptionally well, with notable high quality performances from actors such as Sean Ashmore, Aidan Gillen, and Courtney Hope, and a special mention of the performance of Lance Reddick as Martin Hatch, being arguably the best live action performance I've seen within a video game. Really, all of the actors do a great job in this title, and I've stuck to just mentioning a few in the interest of time. However, there wasn't any area that I could be overly critical of.
Do I look threatened to you?
Guys, of course! Stop fucking shooting at us! God damn it! Are you sure it's supposed to do that?
Stable. A gun. The universal symbol for shut the fuck up and listen to me.
So what do I compare this game to? Well, it is difficult as it is a rather unique one, so we might need to focus on individual aspects to draw connections to. This game was originally conceptualized as a sequel to Alan Wake, and though the final product is a unique game all on its own, it's only fair to mention this one. Another game that seems to be set in the same universe and does have shared references is the game Control. The specific abilities in Control are different, however the concept of psychic abilities and manipulation of reality is shared between them. I also had some Max Payne 3 vibes from this game. It really can feel like you're playing through an interactive movie at times, and Max Payne pulled this off to a lesser extent some years earlier. I would also like to mention Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Though the gameplay and mechanics are quite different from Quantum Break, I simply mention it as a comparison for ratio of story and narrative versus strictly traditional style gameplay. Both games are heavy in storytelling and have a little less developed gameplay style. Although as in both games, the gameplay which is there is done well, it's just that there's substantially less of it when compared to other games. So now that we've looked at some of the features of the game, we reach the point of my review where I give a more subjective look at my personal experience with it. Please keep in mind that the following is just my opinion of the game, and if the features and genre seem interesting to you, you should definitely check it out for yourself, as not all games are for all gamers. The game that you hate might be the next gamer's all-time favorite, which is one of the things that I love about gaming. There's always something for someone out there. So now we go into the subjective look at whether or not I enjoyed the game, and if I personally recommend this one to a first-time player.
The word is yes, Carl.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Yes, definitely. You just need to be aware of what type of game this is going in, and I hope I've done a good job of explaining just that. The style is unique and may not be for everyone. However, the story is quite interesting, and although the gameplay might be limited, it is quite fun. The acting during the live action is really good, especially compared to some other live action style games I've tried, and the dialogue is delivered very well. There are a couple of graphical issues and some mechanics can be frustrating at times, but overall when looking at what the game has to offer versus these slight critiques, it's still well worth a playthrough. The only really negative critique is the length of the game, as it's very short. Realistically, if you decided to push through it, you could probably complete it in a day or maybe two. Though I would still take this style of short game filled with content and an interesting story over a very long game that feels artificially stretched out through grindy gameplay or boring repetitive content. So I hope you liked this look at Quantum Break. Have you already played through this one? What were your own thoughts on the game? Did you agree or disagree with my own assessment of it? If you disagreed, let me know why. Maybe there's something I didn't think of and you can convince me. I'd love to hear about your own experiences down in the comments, or if my review showcase was helpful, I'd like to know if you decided to go ahead with it or not. Either way, if you found this video interesting or entertaining, please let me know with a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to the channel. I make and upload a variety of gaming content, not just reviews like this, but also walkthroughs, mod showcases, let's play, and more. And I'd love to have you join the community and help direct the future of the channel. Otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time to watch today, and until next time, take care.
A gun. The universal symbol for shut the fuck up and listen to me.